The topic for today is how to ask great questions. What I have noticed, both within myself and also observed amongst my colleagues and at work, is that there are times when we really undermine our effectiveness because of how we ask questions. And I also have observed the people who do it really effectively, and at some point I got really interested in learning more about how to ask good questions and what difference can that make, and kind of went into a bit of a research mode, and I wrote out a number of things that really stood out to me, which is what I want to share with you today. And as always, a bit of a disclaimer: it doesn't mean that I'm perfect at those things, and if anything, quite often with a number of those things that I'll talk about today, I find myself doing them. And as they say, one of the best way to learn something is to share it with others and to practice. So this is exactly, I guess, what I'm doing with this video, and also every time I catch myself doing what I'm not supposed to be doing, I hope that I'm learning and kind of getting better every time. So the number one thing with asking good questions is the importance of simplifying. Have you ever been in a situation when maybe you're in an audience and they ask, audience questions, and they always kind of preempt it with saying, can you please be brief? Because sometimes people will get up and share their whole life story before they ask a question. And I think we often do this because we feel like people really need context, and we want to make sure that whatever the question we ask, people understand what they want, what we want from them. But we also have to remember that we think faster than we can talk. So if you're spending 10 minutes giving a whole context and background, it's very, very likely that you will lose people's attention. And the really important thing to remember is try to ask your questions in 5 words if you can. Really, try to be really simple and concise. And the reality is people can always ask follow-up questions if they don't understand. But you trying to be super concise and actually try to avoid using empty words or introductions that are not needed. And I have shared on Instagram a video before about minimizing language and not starting your questions with "this might be a stupid idea" and all of those types of things. So make sure those things are banned in how you're talking. But also, evaluate, do people really need to know all the context, or how did you think through getting to this question, or are you able to be concise? So that's number one. Number two, once you ask your concise question, shut up. How often do we feel uncomfortable with creating the space and silence? And when we don't give space and kind of jump in to fill it in, we don't give the opportunity for people to actually respond, and to respond with something that is quite deep and meaningful. Give them time to think things through. And if we jump in and I've noticed I caught myself doing that myself sometimes, especially if I'm nervous. I'll ask this gigantic question, and then there'll be a 2-second pause, and I'll jump in with trying to fill it in with examples, or kind of like, oh, no questions, all right, let's move on. And that's not good enough. So let's learn to be comfortable with space. So we're asking our concise question, and then we are keeping silent and stopping and basically letting people to respond. Another element that is really, really important when we're asking a question is actually think about our intention. And are we really genuinely wanting to ask a question, or are we trying to give advice that looks like a question? And look, sometimes there is a genuine that we want to ask, have you considered doing this and this and this? But it's only if we are very comfortable with the person saying, well, no, I haven't considered and I'm not interested, or yes, I've considered and I'm not going to do it. If the reason why you're asking that question is because you believe that the person needs to be doing X, Y, and Z, and you don't want to be the person who is giving advice because you learned somewhere, which is true, that most of the time people don't need your advice unless they explicitly ask you for it, just don't do it. Seriously, if you have this real need to share your expertise or opinion with someone, just say it. It's better to do it that way than conceal it into a question. So always be clear on your intentions. Assuming you're clear on your intention, you've asked a concise question and you stopped and created space, the last thing that can really help you with asking really impactful questions, and most importantly, I guess, getting the insights that you're looking for, is asking a really simple what else. We have to remember that very, very rarely we get the most insightful and the most thought through and the most real answers straight up. Usually it takes a number of those what else's to ensure that we've explored all the depth of the question, or maybe all the possibilities, depending on what we're exploring. So if you're asking someone what's on your mind, what is bothering you, what is your biggest challenge right now, asking the and kind of hearing the first response, it's good, and you need to acknowledge it and kind of say, yep, that's fantastic, thank you, and what else? Tell me more about that. This is so incredibly powerful, and if you make that as a habit to use, of course, as always, everything needs to be within moderation. Oh, great. Siri spoke to me. So asking that what else question would be the third element that would be really important in terms of helping you asking more impactful questions. I hope this has been useful, and as always, I look forward to hearing any of your own insights and feedback on this topic. Thank you for listening.